Picture the year 1697. Trace your finger along the map of the North Atlantic, where cold currents descending from Greenland collided with warmer waters flowing northward from the Gulf Stream, creating immense fields of fog that could stretch for hundreds of square miles. Smell the mixture of wet oak planking, pine tar, hemp rope soaked with salt water, whale oil lantern smoke, and bilge water fermenting beneath crowded decks. Hear the creaking of futtocks, hanging knees, and deck beams as a wooden vessel weighing nearly 300 tons rose upon a gray Atlantic swell before dropping into a valley of dark water. Listen to canvas snapping against yards, suspended 80 feet above the sea, while blocks rattled and deadeyes groaned under immense tension. In this world, there existed dangers that every sailor understood. Storms could dismast a ship in minutes. Hidden reefs could tear open a hull below the waterline. Pirates could emerge from the horizon and turn an ordinary voyage into a massacre. Yet there was another threat, one less predictable and perhaps more terrifying, because it seemed almost supernatural. Fog. Mariners spoke of fog banks so dense that a man standing 20 feet away could disappear completely. Entire squadrons vanished from sight within moments. Cannons fired blindly into whiteness. Bells rang endlessly from invisible ships drifting nearby. Among the countless legends whispered in waterfront taverns from Bristol to Nassau, one story endured longer than most. It was the story of a pirate ship known as the Sea Phantom, a brigantine that entered a wall of fog during the final years of the 17th century and was never seen again. The tale began in the Caribbean, where piracy flourished amid imperial rivalries. The Sea Phantom was reportedly built around 1688 in a hidden colonial shipyard, using white oak for her frames and longleaf pine for her planking. Measuring approximately 92 feet along her gun deck, with a beam of 24 feet and a draft approaching 11 feet when fully loaded, she was neither the largest nor the fastest vessel sailing those waters. Yet experienced sailors noted unusual qualities in her design. Her tumble home was pronounced, allowing greater protection for gun crews. Her hull possessed a sharp entry at the bow and relatively fine underwater lines that improved speed when reaching before favorable winds. She carried 14 iron cannons, each firing round shot, weighing between 4 and 6 pounds. The guns themselves were masterpieces of brutal engineering, forged from cast iron containing varying concentrations of carbon and trace slag inclusions. Each cannon weighed nearly 1,000 pounds. Black powder charges packed behind iron shot consisted of roughly 75% potassium nitrate, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur. When ignited by a burning match applied to the touch hole, the chemical reaction generated rapidly expanding gases reaching temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius, propelling projectiles capable of smashing through oak planking several inches thick. The impact was rarely limited to the entry hole. Shockwaves splintered wood fibers deep within surrounding timbers, creating lethal clouds of razor-sharp fragments that sailors called wooden hail. The Sea Phantom earned her reputation not through overwhelming firepower, but through cunning. Her captain, a mysterious figure known only as Elias Voss, reportedly operated under articles of agreement stricter than those found aboard most pirate vessels. Crew shares were carefully recorded. Theft from fellow pirates carried severe punishment. Desertion was treated as betrayal. Unlike many captains who relied entirely upon fear, Voss cultivated discipline resembling that of a naval officer. Such discipline would soon carry his ship into waters where seamanship alone might not be enough. By the spring of 1697, the Sea Phantom had spent nearly 2 years raiding merchant traffic between the Caribbean and the North American colonies. Her crew numbered approximately 73 men drawn from England, Scotland, France, the Dutch Republic, and several Spanish territories. Life aboard such a vessel was a relentless contest against discomfort. Sailors slept in cramped spaces between guns. Salt crystals accumulated on clothing. Fresh water stored in oak casks gradually developed unpleasant flavors as microorganisms multiplied within microscopic imperfections in the wood. Salted beef often contained enough brine to preserve it for months, though not enough to prevent eventual spoilage. Rats thrived. Cockroaches infested stores. Yet compared to service aboard many naval vessels, pirate life could seem attractive. Articles of agreement frequently guaranteed compensation for injuries. A sailor losing a right arm might receive hundreds of pieces of 8. Such arrangements transformed piracy into a dangerous but potentially profitable enterprise. During May, reports began circulating among merchant captains regarding strange weather conditions developing across sections of the North Atlantic. Dense advection fog formed where contrasting water temperatures met. Contemporary sailors lacked modern meteorology, yet they understood patterns through observation. Logbooks described days during which visibility collapsed from several miles to mere yards. Sound became distorted. Ship bells echoed strangely. Voices appeared to emerge from impossible directions. On the 23rd of May, the Sea Phantom departed a hidden anchorage, carrying provisions for a voyage expected to last 6 weeks. Witness accounts recorded barrels of water, sacks of dried peas, salted pork, spare canvas, coils of tarred hemp rope, and gunpowder kegs loaded aboard. Each powder keg represented tremendous destructive potential. Stored within the magazine below deck, powder had to remain dry. Even a small spark could trigger catastrophe. Crew members wore felt slippers near powder stores to minimize accidental ignition. The vessel sailed northward, intending to intercept merchant shipping approaching the Grand Banks. The Grand Banks themselves were among the richest fishing grounds on Earth, but also among the most hazardous. Cold Labrador currents and warmer Atlantic waters produced persistent fog. Icebergs occasionally drifted southward. Sudden storms developed with little warning. It was a region where navigation demanded exceptional skill. Mariners relied upon dead reckoning, celestial observations, sounding leads, and experience. Longitude remained notoriously difficult to calculate accurately. A small navigational error could place a vessel dozens of miles from its estimated position. As the Sea Phantom approached these waters, surviving accounts describe increasingly unusual conditions. Crew members reportedly observed fog banks standing upon the ocean like walls. Lantern light reflected strangely from suspended moisture. One sailor later claimed the sea appeared unnaturally calm, despite strong winds reported elsewhere. Another described hearing bells through the fog when no vessels were visible. Such details may have been exaggerated over time, yet they reflected genuine maritime fears. Fog transformed the ocean into a realm where ordinary sensory cues became unreliable. Distance vanished. Direction became uncertain. The horizon itself disappeared. For sailors dependent upon visual navigation, few situations were more unsettling. Nevertheless, Captain Voss pressed onward. Merchant traffic remained abundant. Opportunity lay ahead. Unknown to him, the voyage was entering its final chapter. During the first week of June, the Sea Phantom encountered several merchant vessels and reportedly captured a small brig carrying textiles and manufactured goods destined for colonial markets. The prize added supplies but little wealth. Crew members expected greater rewards farther north. Weather observations reconstructed from contemporary records suggest atmospheric conditions deteriorated steadily. Air temperatures fluctuated sharply. Moisture condensed upon every exposed surface. Rigging became slick. Sails absorbed water and increased in weight. Hemp rope swelled as fibers absorbed moisture, subtly altering tension throughout the standing rigging. Such changes mattered aboard sailing ships, where balance between masts, yards, and sails determined performance. A vessel depended upon thousands of interconnected components functioning together. The mainmast alone endured enormous forces generated by wind pressure acting upon canvas measured in thousands of square feet. Every deadeye, lanyard, shroud, and stay contributed to structural integrity. On the evening traditionally associated with the disappearance, conditions reportedly became extraordinary. Witnesses aboard another vessel, a merchant snow sailing toward Newfoundland, later described observing an immense fog formation stretching across the horizon. According to testimony recorded years afterward, the fog appeared unusually dense and sharply defined. Whether this represented natural atmospheric behavior or embellishment remains uncertain. What is known is that dense fog banks can indeed form dramatic boundaries under specific conditions. The Sea Phantom approached such a boundary shortly after sunset. Lanterns were lit throughout the vessel. Lookouts occupied stations at bow and mastheads. Bells sounded at regular intervals to warn unseen ships. Visibility reportedly declined from several hundred yards to less than 50. Moisture dripped continuously from spars and rigging. Sailors could hear water striking the hull, yet struggled to see the sea itself. Captain Voss ordered reduced sail. Top gallants were furled. Courses were shortened. Speed decreased. Such precautions reflected sound seamanship. Yet even cautious navigation carried risks. In dense fog, collision remained a constant danger. A ship moving at 6 knots covered more than 600 feet every minute. Obstacles could emerge without warning. Accounts diverged dramatically at this stage. Some claimed the Sea Phantom sailed directly into the fog wall and vanished instantly. Others suggested bells continued sounding for several minutes before fading. A few stories even described ghostly lights moving within the mist. While such details belong more to legend than verified history, they reveal how profoundly the disappearance affected maritime imagination. What seems likely is that the vessel entered an area of exceptionally poor visibility from which no confirmed sighting ever emerged. The ocean possesses countless mechanisms for destroying evidence. Storms sink ships. Currents disperse wreckage. Wood becomes waterlogged and descends beneath the surface. Yet even by those standards, the complete absence of trace evidence proved remarkable. No lifeboats appeared. No survivors reached shore. No identifiable wreckage was recovered. The Sea Phantom simply ceased to exist within recorded history. To understand how a vessel might disappear so completely, one must examine the realities of 17th century maritime technology. Ships of this era were marvels of craftsmanship, but remained vulnerable to countless hazards. Hull construction relied upon interconnected wooden frames assembled through mortise and tenon joints, tree nails, iron fastenings, and complex geometric arrangements refined over centuries. Oak possessed exceptional strength due to its dense cellular structure. Nevertheless, constant exposure to seawater encouraged rot, marine borers, and structural fatigue. Even well-maintained ships required frequent careening, a process during which the vessel was deliberately heeled over to expose hull surfaces for cleaning and repair. Failure to maintain a hull reduced speed and increased risk. Navigation limitations compounded these dangers. Magnetic compasses could be affected by local anomalies. Clouds obscured celestial observations. Dead reckoning accumulated errors over time. Fog amplified every weakness. A captain uncertain of his exact position might unknowingly approach shoals, reefs, or ice. Some historians propose that the Sea Phantom struck submerged hazards concealed by poor visibility. The Grand Banks region contains numerous underwater features capable of wrecking vessels. Impact forces could be catastrophic. Consider a 300-ton brigantine traveling several knots before grounding. Momentum concentrated along a limited section of hull might fracture frames, open seams, and permit rapid flooding. Water entering through breaches exerts immense pressure. A hole only a few square feet in area can admit tons of seawater within minutes. Pumps operated continuously during emergencies, but possessed limited capacity. Once flooding exceeded pumping capability, survival prospects declined rapidly. Another theory involves collision. Dense fog dramatically increases collision risk. Two wooden ships closing at combined speeds exceeding 10 knots could inflict devastating damage upon one another. Iron cannon masses breaking loose during impact became deadly projectiles within confined decks. Masts might collapse. Hulls could be pierced. Survivors from similar historical accidents described scenes of chaos, illuminated only by lantern light and muzzle flashes from emergency signals. Yet no corresponding wreck was documented. The absence of evidence encouraged speculation. Sailors invented explanations ranging from sea monsters to supernatural curses. Some connected the disappearance to older legends involving phantom ships. Human imagination naturally seeks meaning when confronted with uncertainty. The sea provides fertile ground for such stories because it conceals answers beneath miles of water. Modern investigations of maritime mysteries often reveal mundane causes hidden beneath dramatic narratives. However, the Sea Phantom remains difficult to analyze because documentary evidence is scarce. Most surviving references emerged decades after the event. Each retelling added details. Each storyteller emphasized different elements. Over time, the historical vessel and the legendary vessel became inseparable. What began as a probable maritime accident evolved into one of the Atlantic's enduring ghost stories. Yet the legend survived because fog itself possesses qualities that encourage myth-making. Scientifically, fog consists of microscopic water droplets suspended within air. Individually insignificant, collectively they transform perception. Light scatters in complex ways, contrast disappears, distances become deceptive. Sound refracts through layers of differing temperature and humidity. Bells may seem closer or farther than reality. Voices distort. Shapes emerge and vanish. Modern sailors equipped with radar still report unsettling experiences within dense fog. Imagine confronting those conditions using only 17th century technology. A lookout standing high upon the foremast platform might strain desperately to identify dangers hidden beyond a few ship lengths. Moisture would bead upon eyelashes. Lantern flames would glow as diffuse halos. The ocean would appear endless and featureless. Under such circumstances, fear flourished. Maritime folklore from numerous cultures contains tales of vessels swallowed by mist. Some legends describe enchanted islands. Others mention ghost fleets. The Sea Phantom fit naturally into this tradition. Tavern storytellers, it's expanded upon sparse facts. They claimed Captain Voss pursued a treasure route, revealed by stolen charts. They described strange compass behavior. They spoke of phantom bells echoing across moonless seas. None of these details can be verified, yet each reflects genuine concerns of the era. Navigation errors, magnetic variation, hidden shoals, and poor visibility represented constant threats. Even experienced captains respected fog. Insurance records from later centuries revealed substantial losses attributed to reduced visibility. Before modern communication, a ship disappearing beyond the horizon often vanished from human knowledge entirely. Maritime commerce depended upon fragile networks of information. News traveled slowly. Records were incomplete. If a vessel failed to arrive, owners might never learn its fate. Thousands of ships disappeared under such circumstances. Most were forgotten. The Sea Phantom endured because storytellers transformed absence into mystery. They imagined the final moments aboard, sailors gripping wet rigging, officers consulting uncertain charts, the bell ringing through white emptiness, water dripping from yards, the hull cutting silently through unseen seas. Then nothing. No wreckage, no survivors. Only fog closing behind the ship like a curtain. More than 3 centuries later, the waters associated with the legend remain among the most challenging maritime environments in the world. Modern vessels navigate using satellite positioning, accurate to within meters. Radar penetrates darkness and fog. Weather satellites monitor atmospheric conditions across entire oceans. Yet fog continues to disrupt shipping, aviation, and fishing operations. The same collision of currents that troubled 17th century sailors still produces vast banks of mist. The environment that shaped the Sea Phantom story remains real. Marine archaeologists occasionally investigate reports of unidentified wrecks resting upon the seabed. Thousands exist. Many will never be positively identified. Wooden ships deteriorate over time. Biological activity consumes organic material. Storms scatter remains. Sediments bury evidence. Even if the Sea Phantom lies somewhere beneath those waters, confirming its identity would be extraordinarily difficult. Perhaps the vessel struck an iceberg, concealed within fog. Perhaps she grounded upon an uncharted shoal. Perhaps structural failure opened her hull during rough weather. Perhaps collision sent her beneath the waves before distress signals could be recognized. History offers many plausible explanations, yet none possess sufficient evidence to close the case. And that uncertainty explains why the legend endures. The story is not merely about a pirate ship. It is about humanity confronting environments larger, older, and more powerful than itself. 17th century sailors crossed oceans in wooden vessels, held together by iron bolts, oak timbers, tarred hemp, and faith in their own skill. They entered regions where maps contained blank spaces and where weather could erase entire horizons. The Sea Phantom symbolizes every ship that sailed beyond sight and never returned. Somewhere within a cold Atlantic fog bank, at least in the imagination of generations of sailors, a brigantine still glides silently through white darkness. Her 14 iron cannons remain secured behind closed gun ports. Her sails hang damp beneath invisible winds. Her bell echoes across hidden waters, and her captain stands upon the quarterdeck, staring into the mist, forever searching for a path home that history never recorded. The years following the disappearance transformed the Sea Phantom from a missing vessel into a legend feared by mariners across the North Atlantic. By 1703, fishermen working the Grand Banks reported encounters with what they described as an impossible silhouette emerging from fog banks before vanishing moments later. Most such reports can be explained by atmospheric refraction. a phenomenon in which temperature inversions bend light and create distorted images known today as superior mirages. Yet 17th and 18th century sailors possessed no scientific explanation for these events. A distant ship might appear suspended above the horizon. A fishing boat could seem twice its actual size. Entire coastlines occasionally appeared where no land existed. To men already familiar with the story of the Sea Phantom, every unusual sight became further evidence that the pirate vessel still wandered the fog. One account recorded by a merchant captain from Boston described hearing a bell tolling at regular intervals throughout an entire night, despite visibility being less than 30 feet. The sound appeared first off the port bow, then astern, then somewhere beyond the starboard beam. Such acoustic distortions occur naturally when moisture, temperature gradients, and wind interact across open water. Nevertheless, sailors interpreted the experience differently. According to the captain's journal, several crew members refused to leave the deck because they believed the Sea Phantom was circling them within the mist. Fear itself became a navigational hazard. Panic could lead to poor decisions. Sailors distracted by superstition might overlook genuine dangers. Yet maritime culture has always blended practical seamanship with folklore. A man could calculate latitude using celestial observations and still carry charms against bad luck. The same sailor who understood sail trim, ballast distribution, and hull hydrodynamics might also refuse to whistle on deck for fear of summoning storms. Thus, the Sea Phantom continued to grow beyond its historical origins. Each sighting added another layer. Each retelling increased the mystery. Within a generation, many sailors believed the vessel had become something far stranger than a lost pirate ship. They believed it had become part of the fog itself. Among the most fascinating elements of the legend were descriptions of the ship's construction that appeared in later accounts. Storytellers claimed the vessel could survive storms that shattered larger warships. They described frames fashioned from unusually dense oak, harvested from ancient forests. Whether true or not, the engineering of such vessels deserves attention. A brigantine like the Sea Phantom relied upon a keel formed from massive timbers, sometimes exceeding 50 feet in length. Attached to this backbone were floors, foretocks, top timbers, and riders, creating a skeletal framework capable of distributing tremendous forces. Every Atlantic swell imposed stress upon the hull, as waves lifted bow and stern while leaving the center unsupported. The vessel experienced hogging forces. When the opposite occurred, sagging forces dominated. Over months and years, these stresses loosened fastenings, opened seams, and weakened structural integrity. Shipwrights fought this constant battle through careful design and maintenance. Iron bolts secured critical joints. Oakum made from loose hemp fibers was hammered between planks and sealed with hot pitch. Tar coatings reduced water penetration. Even so, leaks were inevitable. Most ships carried pumps that operated daily. A sailor assigned to pumping duty might spend hours turning handles connected to primitive mechanisms, lifting seawater from the bilges. If the Sea Phantom had suffered hidden structural damage before entering the fog, deterioration may have reached a critical point during her final voyage. Imagine a frame weakened by years of stress. A storm-driven wave strikes the hull. Fastenings fail, seams widen. Water begins entering faster than pumps can remove it. Cargo shifts. Stability decreases. The vessel heels dangerously. Under such circumstances, a ship could vanish with terrifying speed. Contemporary records document vessels sinking within minutes after catastrophic hull failures. In darkness and fog, nearby ships might never witness the disaster. The ocean would simply reclaim its victim. leaving little evidence behind. Another theory emerged during the 19th century, when advances in oceanography encouraged scholars to reconsider maritime mysteries. Researchers noted that the waters surrounding the Grand Banks often experienced sudden weather transitions. Warm, moist air flowing over colder water condensed rapidly, producing fog dense enough to reduce visibility almost instantly. Such conditions also influenced wind behavior. A vessel entering a fog bank might encounter entirely different atmospheric conditions than those existing only a few miles away. Sailors reported situations where strong breezes disappeared without warning, leaving ships becalmed. Others described violent gusts emerging from nowhere. For a brigantine dependent upon carefully balanced sail plans, abrupt changes created serious risks. If powerful winds struck unexpectedly while sails remained fully deployed, spars could fail. A man-yard measuring more than 50 feet in length endured enormous loads. Should such a spar snap, falling timber, rigging, and canvas could devastate the deck below. Men might be crushed instantly. Rigging could drag into the sea and threaten stability. Emergency repairs in darkness required exceptional discipline. Captain Voss was reputed to maintain precisely that discipline, but even the best crews faced limits. Consider the complexity of managing 14 cannons, dozens of sails, thousands of feet of rope, and more than 70 crew members aboard a constantly moving platform. Every command required coordination. Every mistake carried consequences. In fog, those challenges multiplied. Officers could not see approaching squalls. Lookouts lost their primary advantage. Signals became unreliable. Under such circumstances, the Sea Phantom may simply have encountered a chain of failures from which recovery proved impossible. Yet because no witness survived, uncertainty remained. History recorded only the beginning of the voyage and the absence that followed. The legend acquired its darkest chapter during the 1730s, when several whaling crews claimed to have discovered floating debris that they associated with the missing pirate vessel. Reports mentioned blackened planks, fragments of carved ornamentation, and iron fittings heavily corroded by seawater. Unfortunately, none of these objects survived long enough for examination. Wooden debris was common across the Atlantic. Thousands of ships crossed those waters annually. Storms regularly scattered wreckage over vast distances. Nevertheless, the descriptions sparked renewed fascination. One account referred to a section of decorative stern carving